In this video, I am joined by a fantastic panel. Big show today, all about the Disneyland Forward event. We're also going to talk about this crazy rumor by Mickey Views, Braden over there, dropping this rumor about the Magic Kingdom possibly getting a New Orleans Square style re-theme over there for Frontierland, all kinds of stuff. We also might dip into a little bit of this Reedy Creek thing with DeSantis. There's a ton going on right now. Up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. We have a lot to discuss today, so I'm going to dispense with the pleasantries. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with my producer, Vash Sky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Dre, welcome back, brother.
You may dispense with the pleasantries, Commander.
That's what you're looking for, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for welcoming me back on. Feeling pretty good, so this should be a lot of fun to be back here in the saddle. It's going to be very, very interesting going over some of today's topics because they have big implications for the Walt Disney Company and its parks division. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, if you guys want to follow me, you can go and do so right down there at Vash Sky. Just go ahead and type it in. It should pop up for all the, as Christine Waystons McCarthy would say, for all the... hang on.
Robust
Discussion right there. And if you want to see me, you can do so right here at the channel you're watching right now with OG 55. We have some amazing shows, including... what you're watching right now, Orange Grove 55 and Orange Nerd, where we talk about everything related to C-Suite. Jay with Story Geeks, where we talk about the stories that impact our lives, including, we're covering every single episode of The Mandalorian as it comes out, so that's a lot of fun. The season finale is coming up, so guys, you want to subscribe just for that. It's going to be a banger, I am sure. Citrus Corner, hosted by George, our dear friend, of course, dear brother in arms, George, where we cover everything Walt Disney World related, and my own show, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh, right from the Grove. And, because we're going to be talking about RCID here...
I am altering the deed. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Is that coming? We'll see.
We'll see. And we got Mr. Family Man 23, George, host of our Walt Disney World show here on the channel, Citrus Corner, sponsored by Manscaped. No, just kidding. Again, just kidding, Manscaped. Not sponsored yet. Not sponsored yet.
But please reach out to me. I'm all ears. All
ears. But George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. Please check out the podcast, A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes, absolutely. And right below Mr. Family Man, we have Mr. Theme Park Casual.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
There he is. Welcome back, Casual. It's always good to see you, brother.
Yes, thank you for having me back on. And I do have to say thank you to you guys because just a couple of weeks ago, we passed the 1-year anniversary from the first time I was on the Orange Grove 55 channel. So
sweet.
It's been a year that we've been doing this, guys. So I just want to say thank you. But you can find me on YouTube. I'm usually at the parks, either Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm. That channel is Theme Park Casual. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Theme Park Casual, where we have more dissection of what's going on in the Disney community.
Perfect. Thank you, Casual. And down below, we got Mr. Theme Park Wizard, who actually, Wizard and I did a great Universal show yesterday that was absolutely phenomenal. Wizard was breaking down all the latest Universal news. Really, really good show. Check that out after this one. But Wizard, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir, and more importantly, where they can buy your merch.
You can find me
at Theme Park Wizard on YouTube. Find me at Park Wizard 1 on Twitter, where I gained over 100 followers this weekend.
Ooh.
And then Theme.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah, buddy. Thank you very much. And you can
Very much.
you can find me
Love
at
it.
theme_park_wizard on Instagram and buy all my shit on themeparkwizard.com. Where guess what? I will rip you off.
There we go. There we go. And Wizard, just for you, Wizard, I have one of your favorite drops ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and check you in, sir.
Now let me welcome everybody to the Wild Wild West.
There you go. There you go.
See, we had to get George in here as well, and I think it is time
Pay attention, it's Joe
to
time.
begin.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. So we're talking Disneyland Forward. They had an event the other day. Go ahead, Dre, set the table what we're looking at here, and we'll go from there.
So I think Disney themselves marketed this as like a coffee event or something like that. Basically a public outreach event in order to get the residents, ideally the residents of Anaheim, on board with the idea of Disneyland Forward. And what Disneyland Forward is, I think a lot of people have a misconception about what it is, right? It's essentially a rezoning project that would allow Disney to utilize the land that they currently own in Anaheim to the extent that they want to use it, right? And there are some limitations on how they can use certain parcels and so forth. And what Disneyland Forward brings to the table is a way to allow for multiple uses for such land. For example, the Toy Story lot, the old Strawberry Fields site, right?
Right.
I believe that has been approved for theme park use and parking use, but not much else. So if you wanted to build a hotel, for instance, there, you are going to be limited. Disneyland Forward seeks to get approval from the city that would allow them to utilize that for a mixed-use purpose, let's say. So it's kind of all about those kind of zoning privileges that they're looking to gain from the city. And they're doing it in, I think, a pretty smart way, pretty clever way, doing some public outreach, which is, I mean, I think Dave from Fresh Baked actually said it best, where this is, let's say, a different tactic than maybe what they did with the new hotel project, the fourth hotel project that was canceled, but most specifically the Eastern Gateway project that was canceled.
Right.
As you know, when Eastern Gateway was announced, it was, hey, we're going to do this, and you're going to like it. And
Right.
unfortunately, they received some heavy pushback, not from the residents per se, but the businesses that run up along Harbor. And there's actually some updates on that front that's really interesting to get into. But this is a way to kind of be transparent about the process of this Disneyland Forward rezoning project and to get people, I think, excited about the idea of the Disneyland Resort growing and what that means beneficially for the community of Anaheim at large.
Well, it's a smart move. I agree with you. This is a much better approach. You attract more flies with honey, basically, that old saying, right? And going in here and getting support, and we'll talk about this in great detail, but going in there and getting support from the community, from local businesses, it sort of puts Anaheim, again, kind of puts them again, kind of into a corner where it's almost like now if they don't approve it, it's like, well, why not? Are you anti-business? Everyone, all the local businesses are supporting it, and Disney's supporting it. So what's the excuse now? Very smart move, much better strategy than what they were trying to do the last time with this, where it was more, like you said, more adversarial, where it was more like, no, we're going to force this on you. Now they're working with the community, they're working with local businesses. Much smarter move.
Now, two people on our panel actually went to this event.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. So, presenting Theme Park Casual and Theme Park Wizard, they were both there together, along with some of our other friends, to kind of see what this event was all about. So, I'm going to go ahead and shift it over to them and just kind of ask, like, whoever wants to go first, what did you guys observe? What was the tone being set? And what kind of information did you glean from this event?
Who's going first?
Go ahead, Wizard.
Yeah, go ahead, Wizard.
Oh boy! So we got there at 8:30 in the morning. and casuals hanging out at a nearby coffee shop or something. And then they got some free donuts and free coffee. They had their little tent set up. How many people do you think were there? Like total? I think what, less than 40, right? Casual.
Yeah, I would probably
And
put it at about
like 20.
15 to 20.
Yeah, like total, and that's like people coming in and out. Now, there's a council member there too, Natalie Meeks. I didn't know who she was, but no wonder I was wondering why everyone's saying hello to this old white lady, and now I know why. I wanted to grill her with questions, but she walked away before I knew what was happening. But it was cool. There's 3 people there, and there's one of them, sorry, 2 of them, where they said they were from a third party, that consultants or something. That one of them, Rebecca, right there, was that right straight from TDA, Government Affairs. She spoke to the mayor herself. She goes to TDA every day. Rebecca, so that's when we talked to like most, because she knows her stuff. And so she's over explaining this simple map over there. But it was cool. I asked her so many questions. I tried to get some good answers, but she's, government affairs, so she was kind of looping around someone, wouldn't give me an answer like a true politician. But
well, you were live tweeting this Wizard the whole time. Should we kind of go down like your tweets and kind of see
let's
like
do it.
Yeah, because those were kind of like
yeah.
Let's go through some of his tweets because he has some great stuff in here.
I think so. So the obviously get to the event, right? The first thing you tweet out, Wizard, looking for approval early 2024. I believe that's when the vote actually takes place, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I asked him, I was like, that's my first question. Like, when's the pro? How long is this timeline? Like, all right, so right now we're going to community meetings, then the draft environmental impact report. Environmental impact report is a requirement by the state of California. It determines every potential impact that a project could have. All projects have them, not just Disneyland, but I mean anything. You build trains, buildings, anything. Bigger the project, the bigger the report, and that's all public info. And they said the draft, DEIR, will be released in May or June, so just in a month or 2, and that'll be all online. It'll be like 100-some pages. You can break down, have everything, building heights, noise ordinances, everything. You can break it all down.
Environmental impact report also, the original one for the Disneyland Resort was crafted in about, I think, the 1990s, if I'm not mistaken. And so this would be an updated report, let's say. And this handles everything from like traffic patterns, what do they expect, like the Harbor Boulevard, for instance, right? If there's going to be more pedestrian traffic, what would that actually do to the nearby roads, nearby businesses? How would local, housing would be impacted by this? It goes into a lot of detail about all of these aspects, and there is a maximum density in which Disney can build as it relates to that report that's approved there. But go ahead, Wizard.
Yeah. So then what they do is the whole planning process. They have the draft report. Then there's about a 90-day public comment period where you can go and comment online, in person, do whatever you want, ask questions. And they have more like events during that period to ask more questions. Then goes up to the planning commission. If they give their little approval, then they do their final environmental impact report. Any changes the planning commission recommends, then same thing, 90-day public comment period. People look at it, which leads us to 2024, early 2024, which then it goes to the city council, and then it would be approved, assuming no changes are made, nothing's wrong, no one's upset. If everything goes swimmingly, then that 2024 early time should be approved. See, May, June, 90 days from then's like the fall. Planning commission, 90 days. Final thing, 90 days. Maybe like by springtime of 2024. So around this time of next should be approved, I'd say.
Well, and here's the thing. There's a big incentive for Disney on multiple fronts to get this thing through, right? Number one, the obvious, which is so they can expand the Disneyland Resort and add more theme park and more hotels or whatever they need. That's the obvious reason. But also right now, and we're going to talk about Florida in a little bit, but right now Disney's in a very contentious, very tense situation with Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida and that whole thing. So I think it's in Disney's best interest right now to show, hey, look, we could work out deals with local governments. We have this great thing that we push forward, Disneyland Forward. We worked with the city and the council to get this approved. It passed. It will kind of like low key stick it to DeSantis. Like, what's the problem over there? It must be him. It's not us because we did fine with Anaheim, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's an incentive here for that. I think Iger, and he sort of has shown, kind of hinted at these shareholder meetings too. Like, don't underestimate California. We have potential here. There's opportunity here. That's not by accident. He's definitely sending a signal to Florida in regards to this. So there's a lot at stake here for Disney, and I think they're going to get it. I think they're going to get it done. I really do. This seems like they are really going forward with a much smarter approach. Like I said, they're trying to attract with honey, flies with honey. They're not getting in there and being so adversarial with the community or whatever. So I don't know. It's an interesting approach, but Casual, what are your overall thoughts on this so far?
Basically, what you were saying is that they're going about it a different way.
Yeah,
and Rebecca all but basically said, yeah, the last time when we did this with the hotel and the bridge over harbor, it was a disaster. She alluded to the fact that they understand that was not very well received, and they needed to change tack for this effort. And she kept reiterating that this is simply the zoning portion of it.
Correct.
Right.
That there's no plans as to exactly what they're going to do with these things, but they want the freedom to be able to start figuring out what makes the best sense. And I think that's where it's kind of easing everybody into it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they could very well use like the symbol lot portion, for example, just exclusively for hotels. Right, that is a possibility there. This just allows them the freedom to do what they want, and I think that's why they changed tack, because this is, I think, far more consequential. This isn't just one or a project or two. This really sets the future for the Disneyland Resort for the next 30 years. Now, it's interesting, Wizard. Speaking about hotels, your tweet here says mentioned hotel inside the park as a possibility of what could happen once Disneyland Forward is approved. Used Galactic Star Cruiser as an example. I think that's fine. That's pretty interesting how they would use that example. Now, obviously, there was a plan to bring Galactic Star Cruisers to resort destinations all around the world. Disneyland Paris, for example, Tokyo. I don't think that's going to quite happen, but it is interesting how they're citing that as an example. What'd you make of that there, Wizard?
Yeah, no, it was interesting because, they could have just said, she could have just, looked in the backyard and said, like the Grand Californian,
Like the Grand Californian, right.
She said Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. And it's funny because that's not really a good example because it's not in the park. Like, that's not what it would be. But, there's a shuttle. The new Tokyo Fantasy Springs will have an in-park hotel. So many examples, but it's hilarious. Funny to me that she said the Galactic Star Cruiser, which is...
Well, I think that's not. I don't think that's an accident. I mean, because I think the plans that we're not going to get a Galactic Star Cruiser. And that's for sure. That hotel on the struggle bus, big time. But I don't even know if Florida is going to have a Galactic Star Cruiser in a few years.
Open question for sure.
Yes, for sure. But I think that the reason why they're using that as an example and not the Grand Cali is because I do think there is a interest by Disney to have sort of these themed hotels that are much more theme park than hotel, maybe. And I think they want to utilize that concept, not necessarily this particular thing, Galactic Star Cruiser, but that concept maybe integrated into any future any future theme park expansion, where it's not just a hotel in a park, it's part of the park. It's part of that themed experience, right? So I think there's definitely a desire by Disney to sort of do that. I just don't think it's going to be the Galactic Star Cruiser, or at least not that version that we know today.
And me personally, I feel like if they were to do something out of Disneyland, if they wanted to consider something like a Star Cruiser type, I would say their best bet was to do something based off of Avatar, because then you can kind of transport guests to say, you go through like the hyperbolic chamber, so to speak, and it transports you into Pandora itself, where that can kind of tie into that whatever they decide to do, with Avatar integrated into Disneyland Park itself, that would be a great tie-in. Plus, with Avatar, they don't have necessarily a strict timeline that Star Wars does. So if they really want to utilize this franchise that's going to be keep on moving forward with the next set of films that's set to come out within the next few years, and then plus, Iger's decision to do this big purchase of Fox, it definitely something to look into.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You could also include, I think, Marvel in that discussion as well. So I think there are definitely there's potential for this concept surrounding multiple IPs in the company's portfolio. Galactic Star Cruiser, as it currently exists,
Not gonna happen.
I don't think so. But very interesting that they did cite that.
But even like a different Star Wars hotel, like just a original trilogy, like just a all around Star Wars, that could still work pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, if anything, the one down in Florida, if it doesn't get utilized well, it'd be perfect for an IKEA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Or perhaps a penitentiary of sorts.
Penitentiary, yeah, exactly. DeSantis would be on board with that one.
I think the Mando pirates are gonna start taking it over pretty soon.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I mean, that's what people want. I mean, I think that it's not so much that Star Wars IP is not necessarily popular. It's just that they're not utilizing it the right way. If you made, like you said, Wizard, like a Mandoverse hotel, it would be crazy busy. There'd be a ton of interest in it. You do an original trilogy hotel experience, that would be big. Even prequels, right? Even prequels would probably be big.
Now, yeah. I have a question for both Casual and Wizard, because Wizard, I believe you posted it on Twitter, and Casual, you discussed it with me over the phone, that there was a strict policy, so to speak, that if they were to expand any of the parks, that they implemented that there would not be any outdoor roller coasters of any kind, and that the show buildings would be more towards the back. I believe you said it was Walnut Street because of the residential area. If you want to elaborate more on that.
They were talking about if you go to the one with the dual maps, you'll see that there's the blue section that's marked for hotels. Yeah, so that blue section, that currently is zoned for hotel use. And that butts right up against Walnut Street on the left side there. On the next one, you can see that the zoning has changed to theme park use. And so what they've already said is anything along that side over there would either be enclosed or noise type of attractions.
Which is good. I mean, as Disney fans or even theme park fans, I like that they're forcing Disney to have show buildings. I don't want a bunch of outdoor roller coasters, Right. I mean, typically when it comes to Disney, I want show buildings. I want indoor themed experiences and things like that. Not to say outdoor stuff can't be good. We have Big Thunder and things like that, but I like this idea of having, these big show buildings on that outer rim. And not only is it great for the attractions themselves, but it's also great to create kind of a berm where it blocks out that outside world, which is very, very important. That's one thing that Michael Eisner completely shit the bed on when it came to DCA. He decided it was a great idea to have a roller coaster you can see right through as your berm. Which didn't work out so well. So this solves some of those problems that DCA 1.0 had, where now the whole back part of that theme park expansion will be a bunch of giant buildings blocking everything out. I couldn't be more supportive of that.
This is one of those times when a little bit of restriction is good, right? Because it inspires creativity, let's say. And I think this is one of those times in which that is actually happening, because I believe those residential neighborhoods, I think I heard somewhere where it was like less than 300 feet away from this location. I mean, it's very, very close. It's literally right across from Walnut Street. I believe Justin Scard grew up in that neighborhood, if I'm not mistaken. But there are houses like right there. So
well, let's put it this way. They're so close that Rebecca did mention that Magic Way would remain as a pedestrian crossing area. Because those residents enjoy the fact that they can simply walk over to Disneyland.
That is a crucial distinction here, because I believe part of Disneyland Forward would shut down Disneyland Drive, which is why I believe that's mentioned, if I'm not mistaken.
She said that there's no plan to eliminate Disneyland Drive, but it could be privatized.
Oh, well, if they privatize it, that's the first step to eliminating it, I think.
I would think so. Wizard, you were going to say something here?
Oh yeah, I'd say yeah. She mentioned privatize. But yeah, I know I probably cut off the ends initially, right? But then yeah, you get a lot more space if eventually you either just eliminate it and build over it, But yeah, step by step. But yeah, she definitely said privatize first, which would be cool because they can add even use that street, can use it for like downtown Disney events or something. I don't know. They can have like you'll have an empty street there. You have some cool festivals or something over there if they really wanted to.
Well, and that street really is only used for Disney stuff. I mean, it's not like they're trying to bury like Harbor Boulevard or Catella or anything like that. At Disneyland Drive, you're not going to Disney, the Grand Cali, or one of those properties. You're not going down Disneyland Drive. So I think they'll be pretty successful in that. What do you guys think? You think you think the city will be on board with that being privatized?
I think so. I mean, traffic there is limited. I don't think it's going to adjust the EIR calculation that much. And we would assume that hotel access for the Grand Californian and, well, Paradise Pier, now Pixar Place Hotel, would be maintained on the northern end of Disneyland Drive, and you would just get there via Magic Way. I would think that would be how they would do that. But I think privatizing Disneyland Drive and maybe eliminating entirely, I think would probably need to happen at some point if in fact they are going to expand the borders of Disney California Adventure across Disneyland Drive in the manner that we see here at the lower left part of your screen right there. So
and I think it's a safe bet for Disney to do that too, as these gentlemen had mentioned that they said that they are not going full force like they did the last time, and I think it's a good first step to kind of get things moving, so that way in time, if they do decide to close the whole thing down entirely, they could do it in steps. Because when you're dealing with the city council and what have you, it's like I don't think Disney really wants to take any chances to just go full blown 100%.
I think it also is revealing that there were actual city council members there present. Now they might be inspecting, resident reaction. That's, we can probably assume that, but council members being there specifically for something like this, that tells you might have maybe some members who are supportive of the project. We'll put it that way. So I think that I think the way they're going about it is appropriate for that. Now, interesting, because I think it's about this time here where we should probably talk about the other things that were mentioned. For example, I found particular interest in this specific tweet from Wizard here. Eastern Gateway Bridge is supported by businesses. Security to remain in the Esplanade, and bridge will be accessible from Harbor Boulevard. Now, what Wizard is actually saying here is referencing the old Eastern Gateway project as it existed before. And people will remember that there was supposed to be a harbor pedestrian bridge that would allow access from a parking structure that was built beyond the businesses on Harbor here, as you can see in the right portion of your screen. You would park there or be transported there via the transportation facility in this case, like by bus or Uber, get out, and immediately you'd be met by the security gateway, past security, and now you can actually cross over that pedestrian bridge. Well, the issue with that and why the businesses were so outraged about that is because that would essentially kill a lot of the pedestrian traffic along Harbor Boulevard itself. Right. People would no longer be needing to walk along Harbor to get to Disneyland. They'd be walking around it in order to get to that security gateway. You can actually see it in this video here. Let me see if I can go ahead and share it. So this was the 3D model here, and this is, see how it says Disneyland Resort Entry Plaza? Where this would be located would be at the very south of this screen right here. So it'd be, let's see if this catches it. Yeah, so you can see that's Harbor. And what is the street called again? Is it Magic Way or?
Not sure.
I want to say that's Magic Way.
I want to say that as well. But anyway, you have this street right here, right? And people would have to walk around this street just to get into the security gateway portion of it, as is noted here by this video here. So you can see here.
That street is Disney Way, by the way.
Disney Way. Thank you. I do appreciate it, Casual. You would have to walk around Disney Way, bypassing those businesses that are north of this area right here, just to be able to get in to the old security gateway right here, which you can see as it travels along the long, narrow corridor besides that parking structure right here. That's that security checkpoint right here. And once you're past this area, now can you use that pedestrian bridge? You can see from the transportation area right here, where you would also get into that security bubble area. But once you're past here, now you can go across where the Carousel Inn used to be, and then that bridge that takes you over Harbor Boulevard right there.
Right.
So that was a source of contention for the businesses. Now, as part of this revised Eastern Gateway portion of this Disneyland Forward project, the security bubble wouldn't start at this security gateway on the east side of Harbor anymore. It would start on the west side, on Disneyland property near the Esplanade.
And that's where it currently
right.
And that's where it currently is. Yeah.
And that's where it currently resides. Yes. Now the only implication that might have, as it relates to their previous Eastern Gateway type concept, would be that it would take up a little bit of the expansion room that they wanted to provide for Disney California Adventure, the north of Hollywoodland. The idea was that you would reroute the monorail, and that you would open that whole area up for expansion for Hollywoodland itself, Disney California Adventure in general, and so forth. Now that might be impacted there just a little bit, but this is a better way to go about this.
Was it? Yeah, because the security would have been on the other side, so they could have got rid of this side security, right? Is what you're saying? But now they got to keep this. Okay.
They under this new structure, they would have to keep a security bubble
on that side.
They would have to maintain that position right there, which they were looking to omit. Now, to be honest, they should have done this before, in my humble opinion, because even for like pedestrians to walk all the way around like that is not great. Go ahead, Wizard.
I was about to say, you can, they have eat into the expansion space a little bit, but if they're creative, they can keep a little bit. I mean, you can once again upgrade the security machines, or make it the ones where most theme parks have. You just walk through, and then it takes up less time, eats more people up, so you meet a little bit few of them. You can take away some of those ticket booths right on that side, move it over there, and you can reclaim some space. So if they get creative, I think they can.
One of the reasons. Oh, go ahead, George.
Oh no, I was just say, Ethan, you bring up a fantastic point here in that the ticket booths at this point, they're kind of pointless because everything is done online, right?
Really, who are you gonna go? You have to go for a ticket booth, but then you still have to make a reservation. So, why did you risk going to the ticket booth? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can remove some of those and push that security even a little bit closer inside. It's a great point, Ethan. Go ahead, Dre. I'm sorry, sir.
One of the reasons why the Esplanade hasn't been, let's say, overhauled in some time. One of the reasons why there are still temporary facilities for the security bubble as it exists on the east side of the Esplanade right now is because it was a little bit of an unknown what the permanent solution might be for this. The idea was, like I said, to put it on the Eastern Gateway portion of this whole plan. But if the idea is to maintain the current positioning of this portion of the security bubble, well, then maybe we can get permanent facilities for these security officers. Maybe we can get new technology installed as a result of a permanent structure or permanent facility for this specific use case. And I think you can maintain a good portion of that expansion.
Yeah.
But like I said before, this. I was critical of Disney at the time that the Eastern Gateway project was actually going forward, because it was like, yeah, I think the businesses kind of have a point, even pedestrians, I think for their case, and it just wasn't the most convenient route to go. I think this is a smarter move, and not only can Disneyland guests use that bridge there, but now all of the residents of Anaheim can use it as well.
But
I also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, OG. No, go ahead, OG.
So I was just saying, I agree about the inconvenience for pedestrians, but I don't know. I still think that it's not Disney's responsibility to make sure that the businesses on Harbor can leech off of the resort. I just don't think that's their responsibility. It's not Disney's responsibility to make sure that McDonald's has a robust business, and you know
that's an interesting case there, OG.
Sorry.
Ahead,
No. So before we move into that, I just have a little thing to say about the ticket booths. To get rid, I do agree that they could kind of finagle something, but I think if they get rid of all the ticket booths, they still are utilized in some way. And I'll give it a perfect example. Our mutual friend, Mindy, had some issues to be able to purchase her Magic Key. Mm-hmm. And their implementations over online that you can only make one form of payment for the Magic Key, and you can't do it over the phone with a cast member. So if you have more than one transaction to purchase for a Magic Key, you would then have to go to the ticket booth, which that was how she had to actually have her Magic Key purchased, which we actually found out that all the Magic Keys are available at the ticket booth, despite of what it says online.
So the ticket booths would not be eliminated in their entirety.
Right. Just move it around. But I'm saying, like, if you were to get rid of all of them,
because I know
it would be unlikely.
You go there, you can upgrade your tickets and upgrade. So definitely it's a use, but I feel like you don't need 8 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
That I agree. Yeah, that I agree. Now. Casual had mentioned something about, like, with the businesses that Disney kind of agreed with the businesses to kind of, I don't know, you put it in a certain way, Casual. Maybe you could elaborate more on it, where they would have an extension off of the main bridge to be able to get to the other businesses.
Oh, correct. That was one of the things that Rebecca was talking about, was that with the security remaining near the Esplanade, the bridge then becomes basically, like Vash was saying, public access. So all the businesses are asking is if that's going to be the main way that you get across, because of the parking structure and whatever, that for Disney, if they have a parking structure on that side or whatever, that the majority of those people would be using the bridge. They asked, can we at least have access points so that people going across the bridge are able to get down to IHOP or Panera or McDonald's and have some wayfinding, letting people know there are businesses down here if you'd like to,
signage.
Right.
So Disney, from what Rebecca was saying, it seems that Disney is agreeable to that sort of a solution.
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
There'll be elevators and staircases.
Right, multiple access points. And I believe at that point there still would be ground level access to the security point in Esplanade.
Which wasn't previously in the plan.
Correct.
This would be very similar to if anybody has seen some of those land bridges out there in Vegas. I think
just like
have,
those. Same thing.
Yeah.
Escalator, stairs.
Which I understand, OG, that I understand the notion that Disney might not have maybe
obligation.
An obligation, direct obligation to support these businesses, but you have to imagine places like IHOP, Denny's, McDonald's, they have marketing agreements with them, right? They have merchandise lines they run through their companies and so forth, right? Not the best relations, let's say, if you don't actually support some of those businesses. And also, too, those businesses have a lot of pull with the city of Anaheim, and it would be this kind of recurring problem, let's say.
Yeah.
If you didn't acquiesce or concede just a little bit. And
I agree. They had to make a deal with them. I just felt like it was a little bit like, I don't know. Yeah, I agree they have to make a deal because they're going to complain and then it's not going to get approved. But it's just, I just feel like it's a little bit like, oh, Disney owes it to us to keep our businesses robust. And I just didn't agree with that. But at the end of the day, you got to make a deal. So I agree with that.
That's part of the environmental impact report. I mean, that's, you're within a community. Unfortunately, we all we all would, I think, like it if Disneyland could just be uprooted and maybe have its own plot where there wasn't a community that they had to be beholden to, let's say, and didn't have to consider for all their decisions. But unfortunately, as you exist in Anaheim, you do. So I think this is a smart move. And here's the thing about all of this stuff too, as it relates to, let's say, the Disneyland Forward project, right? Even if they utilize this area for a hotel and dining complex, which I'm not completely sold on that they're actually going to do that. We will see. The area to the west of Disneyland, as it currently exists, around the various hotels that they have on property right now. If they do anything, I would say even Avatar, which if this is not contingent on these plans, we do think it'll be installed in Disneyland proper. They're going to need parking. They're going to need to solve this issue, which is why I've been bullish on Eastern Gateway is dead in its form, right? But various aspects of it, the majority of aspects of it, will have to be made. And so including it as part of this proposal, I think is a good move because they're going to need parking no matter what they do. This they need to address before they address probably anything else. So getting this kind of like, in a comfortable position for the company, it's a good move.
And it's a good starting point. I was really satisfied for what came out of it, even though that not a whole lot was really unveiled, but just like the overall aesthetics of what it's going to move into as progress keeps on moving. Then I'm glad that it's still as part of the conversation between Disney and the other businesses and the Anaheim City Council.
Yeah. And it seems like. Go ahead, Wizard.
I say, don't worry, George. And when May and June come out and that draft environmental impact report's released, there'll be tons of information for you to break down. Tons. Exact specific details and numbers and maybe some sketches, so you can do like a 10-hour show on that one.
Yes. We probably will too. We probably will.
That'll have, for example, how many hotels will they be able to build as part of this proposed plan? How much usable acreage do they have available to them? A lot of details will come from the environmental impact report, as Wizard actually mentions. But any final thoughts on this, guys, from your personal experience and what the kind of the tone they were putting out there? Do you think there was enthusiasm for at least the residents that were there? I know they were disproportionately made up of Disney fans, but what could you guys see?
For me, I like I said, I was hanging around the Disney fans, so I don't know how many of them were residents and what the reception is. I did ask, how has it been received, and so far they said it's been very positive, which makes sense, because. As they put it, Disneyland is not asking for any additional land. They're not looking to scoop up any other businesses or anything like that. All they want, and this is how they said, Disneyland has a piece of bread, and then there's all the peanut butter. All Disney is asking is to be able to spread the peanut butter however they want, whatever makes sense. And how I was looking at it was what they're asking for is a rezoning so that they can use current city planning best practices going forward. Right. Because right now, like you said, some of these things were established in the 90s. A lot of things have changed, as far as, procedures and materials and all sorts of different, like I said, best practices of integrating multiple types of buildings and functionality spaces
Right.
now. So the hotel inside a theme park, parking structures, possibly doing different things than what is normal, but it's the innovation from, 20 years ago that we're approaching now. And Disney's asking, can we have this rezone so that we can put some of that into play as we're building out for the next 30 to 40 years?
Well, and it was
makes sense.
It makes total sense. And last year, the city council approved the OC Vibe, which doesn't have any theme park space, but it's this kind of mixed use thing that Casual was talking about with entertainment and retail and all that good stuff. So this is kind of like the trend right now with retail. And actually over by me and Wizard, they're expanding our mall to have this kind of mixed use thing called Topanga Social, and it's sort of like an entertainment dining retail thing that they're doing. This is a very popular thing that these companies are doing right now, and all Disney really wants to do is sort of get on that train. Now, it's unique for Disney in the sense that its theme park is incorporated into that, which a lot of other companies don't do. But I think overall, at the end of the day, I think this will get approved. I think they're going about the right way. I think they're getting community and local business support. And like you said, Casual, they're only asking to utilize the land they already own. I think we're in good hands. I think we're in good shape. And really, I know this is probably a lot of fans disagree with me on this, but Dre, I think we're on the same page. I think that Toy Story lot is absolutely not going to be wasted on dining and retail. If you look at the acreage for the Toy Story lot, it's about the same as DCA, almost to the acre. It's like 75 acres of land. Disney will never get that big of land in one piece ever again in Anaheim. It would be total malpractice for Disney to waste 75 acres on retail when you can do that anywhere else on property. It's much easier to find 10, 15 acres to build another downtown Disney than it is to find 75 acres. It's going to be a theme park eventually, almost guaranteed. And like Dre said, it's already zoned for theme park. The reason why the concept art showed retail and dining is because it's not zoned for that. And this is all about the zoning. So they're just trying to get more zoning for that space.
Yeah, and a couple. Oh, I didn't say. One, couple things. One, it also makes sense what you said about OG, because what are they doing right now? They're renovating, spending downtown Disney taking forever, right? So in 2025, it's gonna be done, and they're still doing more. So why they renovate downtown Disney? Just to demolish it and move it somewhere else? Doesn't make any sense to me. But I did notice at the in terms of the reception, positive reception, but also because there's houses 500 feet away, probably as close as that train is to George right now.
Yeah. Hold that thought, Ethan. Hold that thought real quick, because when the train goes by,
He must have hit that track switch.
There you go. Go ahead, Ethan. Sorry, brother.
But there are people I know. It's it was Saturday morning, so they're going on the Saturday morning walk with their dog, and they're like, "What's this?" And then they were interested and started asking them questions, and they seem to be interested, not mad, but very interested, oh wow, that's kind of cool. And there's people I saw them, they walked right from the house across the street, just going to the park, and interesting. Then there's someone with an Oswald hat on, very Disney friendly, and then there's that fan of yours. So yeah, I think there's a couple people I know that just going to the park that day, but they were curious, and they came and started asking a lot of questions, and they seemed very interested, so it was really cool.
Cool.
I know they were cagey about the garden walk. I thought that was very kind of interesting because I think, what was it? I think Dave from Fresh Baked asked about the garden walk to, I believe, Rebecca here.
I asked about the garden walk twice. And by the way, I also wanted to say quickly, I asked about a moving walkway on the bridge to the getaway, and she said no. But I told her, I said, pass it on to your TDA friends. Can you maybe try to...
Well, of course, because they want everyone to pass up before they actually get to the turnstiles.
But I kept asking about the garden walk. I asked two people. I asked the dude, I forgot the dude's name, and I asked Rebecca. Now, the dude said no. Same thing here. Garden walk they don't want to sell. But then the dude mentioned a possible tram from the Eastern Gateway to whatever is in the Toy Story a lot through some sort of way. And then Rebecca was like, no, the Garden Walk is very proud of the property, meaning they don't want to sell.
Yeah.
To very low ball offer. I guess they didn't get offered enough money. I like the comment on the tweet, which is hilarious. But yeah, the Garden Walk is not budging, which they should have bought it when it was for sale, you idiot.
I don't understand that. I really don't. I mean, it's like it's a dying mall.
And then just buy it, and then when it was for sale, and just hold it until you're ready to use it.
Yeah, it's a dying mall, and I don't know why Garden Walk's hanging. I don't know why they're hanging on. I'm sure Disney would give them a pretty penny to take it off their hands, right?
It's been up for sale multiple times, and Disney hasn't budged on it. So they're, I don't get it. Dave from Fresh Baked alluded to there were maybe more issues regarding that than just the purchase price, or let's say. I'm inclined to believe that because they have passed this up multiple times.
Yeah, it's
like what kind of issues though exactly would there be?
Now, would they have to? Would they
allow them to purchase it? Go ahead, Casual. You were saying.
I was just going to say that we don't talk about those kind of things.
Go ahead.
Would they have to? If they was to purchase Garden Walk, that would be included with the zoning. But if they was to get the zoning approved and then purchase Garden Walk, would it automatically fall under?
They would have to be. There would be a separate proposal at this point. This is just for the land that Disney owns currently.
Okay.
So, but you could see. I mean, between this possible new parking, which. It's going to be new parking, and this Toy Story lot, plot of land right here. The only thing in between there is the Garden Walk. That's it. And you would think that just for pedestrian access from the Eastern Gateway, let's say, over across that new pedestrian bridge through that parking facility, you could walk straight down through the Garden Walk to whatever maybe this third gate will be, or even if it is going to be a retail and dining complex, you can get foot traffic there. It's very interesting how it seems obvious to us, but no movement as of yet. And Disney's very smart when it comes to this. At least they have been in the past. Wizard, you mentioned tram, and I know OG. We were having some discussion, and debate on what that could mean. Now, from kind of my view, I don't really think it's like a Mickey and Friends parking lot tram, for example. That would be
they'd have like a dedicated road. I'm thinking more like a shuttle bus or something.
Correct.
Kind of short, because his exact words were possible tram or some sort of transportation.
Right.
Yeah, extend the monorail, you cowards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
But that's the thing too, though, is like, why wouldn't you I don't understand why he just wouldn't say bus then. Like,
yeah,
it's weird. He would go to the tram as the default. Like you would think it would be bus. So that's what is throwing me off.
I don't know. Tram still sounds fun and friendly.
Right.
Bus sounds bus.
Yeah, that's
true. That could
be
just
a
be
word
it, because I mean everybody, it's like, oh, the Disneyland trams. It's like they're happy things.
Yeah, yeah.
But then would they get disappointed when they find out it's not a Disneyland tram?
Right.
At that point, it's no longer an issue, right? It would be, I would think, a bus system. It would have to be at this point, and I don't think they would have the benefit of, let's say, Epic Universe, where they have like a dedicated bus lane for transportation between Universal Studios proper and Epic Universe. I don't think they would. I don't think the city would relinquish that.
So short of a distance. I mean, I feel like it'd be like, a 3-minute bus ride?
Yeah, you don't even really need it because you just right across the street,
Correct. Yeah. So I think that's what's going on here. But I will be interested to see what they end up drafting for this environmental impact report, because I'll say this, with this new parking structure where it's actually located, with the kind of pedestrian walkway overpass there, it would take a lot of pedestrian traffic off of this, and maybe Harbor wouldn't be such a crawl. And if you were able to reposition the 15-minute lot or the drop-off lot. Casual, I think you know that very well. And if they were to have a new transportation facility for buses and Ubers and Lyfts and so forth on this side here, maybe utilize a little bit more of this room if you're not going to have the security gateway right here. This will take off a lot of traffic, I think, on Harbor Boulevard immensely, right? You wouldn't have that cross-over from pedestrians, nor would you have a lot of that traffic that they incur right now from shuttles and so forth, trying to get it in and out of this area. So I think it's even in Anaheim's best interests to approve this, if only for the traffic on Harbor.
No, it's absolutely in their best interest. It's a safety issue too for all those pedestrians. You see 1,000 people trying to cross the street, and it's just not safe. It's a huge benefit to Anaheim, that street, local business. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Should we dip into the next one?
I think we should.
Actually,
depending on how this goes.
Let me give one last little tidbit of information for this. On May 17th, OC Forum is having a luncheon where Disneyland Resort President Ken Potrock will be joining them as he shares highlights from the Happiest Place on Earth's Disney 100 celebration and the vision for the future with Disneyland Forward.
Okay, so
and that
May
is
17th.
a private event, May 17th, private event put on by OC Forum. And I have a friend who is actively trying to see if we can get a seat at one of the tables. So we shall see.
Awesome.
Okay. Casual, if you happen to do that, we'll have you back. Wizard, you can join us because I know this is really your area of expertise here. This kind of planning stuff. You are very knowledgeable.
We shall see if our
area.
good friend. We shall see if our good friend Bob is able to.
Yes.
There.
Yeah, Bob,
Mr. Bob. It was nice to meet Bob. It was cool.
Bob is great. I really love him. So thank you so much, Casual,
Yes.
for that amazing insight. And look, if we have any updates on this story, especially involving you guys on here, we'll definitely have you back on and have you share some more because this is a story to watch, folks. I mean, this is really the future of the Disneyland Resort for the next, as the proposal suggests, 30 years, but for a lot longer than that. So this is one to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our next topic. We're going all the way to Florida now.
My domain. Going to my domain now.
We're going to George's domain. We're going to Orlando, Florida. We're going to talk about this Magic Kingdom rumor that Mickey Views, our buddy Braden, who is actually a great guy. I talk to him in the DMs all the time. He's a really fantastic guy, great content creator. But we have a great little video from Braden. So should we go ahead and dive into that and kind of let that jump us off?
I think so. He explains it quite well. Might as well put in his words right here. This is via Mickey Views on YouTube. Here you go.
When Imagineering was considering a retheme of Splash Mountain at the Magic Kingdom, retheming it to Princess and the Frog, the update presented some thematic issues that I think a lot of us pointed out. First of all, a mountain in the bayou, we're already stretching things a little far thematically here, and then on top of that, a lush bayou in a desert-themed land right next to Big Thunder Mountain. Well, maybe we can make that work somehow, but then add in that Disney has a desire to add a New Orleans-style dining experience to the area alongside Tiana's Bayou Adventure. The ride is even food themed. So where's all that supposed to go? Are we just going to slap it in the middle of the Frontierland street that you have? Just put it in Pecos Bills and the rest of the street stays the same? I think you guys can see how the idea arose. Hey, what if we simply rethemed Frontierland, the only substance of which, with the exception of Big Thunder Mountain right now, is that single walkway passing by the Rivers of America after Liberty Square? What if we updated the aesthetics of the buildings you have on that street and the offerings along that street and made it into a version of New Orleans Square like you have out at Disneyland, where then Tiana...
See, this is a really smart decision because we've talked a lot on this show how Disney isn't really getting a huge return on investment for retheming Splash Mountain. It's not like retheming Maelstrom to Frozen Ever After, where Maelstrom didn't really get a lot of interest, right? There was low demand. So with adding the IP of Frozen in there, you're really increasing that demand, right? You're increasing the capacity. With this, though, you're not. Splash Mountain's already a heavy hitter. It's already very popular. So how do you get a better return on your investment? You retheme this area to New Orleans Square so you can start to let the attraction sell the merch and the food. And what did we hear recently from Disney about the Tiana's Bayou Adventure? They're going to pump the smell of beignets in the queue. That's not by accident, everybody. They're going to pump that smell, and then you're going to want to go over here and get a beignet, right? So they're monetizing Tiana's Bayou Adventure by retheming this area of Frontierland, and it's actually very smart from Disney's perspective. Financially, it's very, very smart. But also as a theme park nerd, it's smart. For us, it's great because now we're going to have an actual cohesive area that supports Tiana. It's not going to be this big sore thumb. I think it's fantastic. I think this is the real. I think this is the movie they should be doing 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's continue a little bit here.
Could have a restaurant where Pecos Bills is now. I think there we're definitely talking counter service, but I've also heard that they want to do a Tiana table service restaurant. But you guys know my questions when I started hearing about all this. It was, what are they going to do with Tom Sawyer's Island? What are they going to do with Big Thunder Mountain? What about Country Bears? What's happening with all of this? So at this point, I'm just going to show you the plan as I see it. Heading down the street, starting off at the front of Frontierland, the sign is a little understated. It's sort of off to the side. It's attached to that DVC kiosk. Everything in the immediate vicinity of the current Frontierland entrance is likely to remain as is. You have the Diamond Horseshoe, which is technically part of Liberty Square. I believe that'll be staying, as well as the Frontierland Shootin' Arcade. They'll probably rename it or something like that, but I do believe that'll be staying as well. Perhaps even the Frontierland gift shop you have over there will be staying in a similar or the exact same state as it currently is. And instead, this small New Orleans street will be starting with Country Bears, and those other Frontierland attractions will simply be roped into Liberty Square. So the Country Bears would be the first building in this New Orleans area. Now, here's what I've heard with Country Bears. Back in late 2019, I told you guys about a slew of projects that were under consideration for the 50th anniversary and that those projects had been green lit. It ended up that those never saw the light of day due to the events of 2020. They were put on the back burner, but the ideas, they were all well fleshed out. Imagineering had done a lot of development work for those projects. These included the addition of the Hatbox Ghost to the Haunted Mansion, which is now confirmed and will be happening later this year. Another planned upgrade that was supposed to be done in time for the 50th anniversary in the Magic Kingdom was completely redoing the Country Bear Jamboree.
And we had heard concepts about this. It was one of those, let's say, unscrupulous sources that brought up the idea of redoing the Country Bear Jamboree and some other, let's say, shows and so forth at the Magic Kingdom the Tiki Room, for instance, right? So to me, it does make a lot of sense what he's saying. I think he's kind of gleaning, okay, they already have concepts for a Country Bear Jamboree redo. Can you incorporate that redo into a redo of this Frontierland area as proposed right here? And I think that's likely. As you can see right here, you would still have your pedestrian access from Adventureland that kind of cut through, right? Before you get to the Pirates of the Caribbean Plaza right there. And then as you make your way out, on your left, on your right, you would have your Frontierland kind of, let's say, traditional facades, right? And your traditional shops and things, store, shooting arcade, Diamond Horseshoe. But then on your left, it would be this kind of New Orleans Square section, which, by the way, I mean, a lot of people are kind of like, they're not necessarily thrilled with this idea. I'll remind people that Walt Disney himself actually did this even before New Orleans Square. That would open in 1965, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 1966. even before that, there were New Orleans type elements that were being added to Frontierland. Even when Disneyland opened, there were kind of New Orleans inspired elements, Vermont Terrace and so forth. The Chicken Plantation restaurant that used to be out there had some New Orleans inspiration, and they kind of built from there to incorporate New Orleans Square as we know it today. But that was taking a lot of Frontierland real estate in order to do that. This would follow in that tradition.
Well, and an interesting thing too is a lot of people are complaining that like we're going to lose Frontierland, and then and you know it's due to like culture war issues, right?
Frontierland's too white.
Well, but here's the thing with that though. Frontierland, in my opinion, has never really been white. Like if you look back on the history of like Frontierland, when they were promoting the park in 1955, Zorro was a big part of that Frontierland in those early days. You know, it's always had a little bit of a Latin flair from the beginning, in my opinion.
I would say a Native American flair as well.
Exactly.
Really heavy Native American influence. The Indian War canoes, now the Davy Crockett's canoes, it's probably your most, your biggest example there. But we've had the Native American village for quite some time along the edges of rivers of America. They weren't always depicted in the best light, that's for sure. But there have been Native American inclusivity there, let's say, right? So yeah, I mean, I've heard that, and obviously I think there's an uncomfortability there for the company regarding Frontierland. So could this necessarily be inspired by a plan to get away from Frontierland? Yes. I think we would be naive to believe that there might not be, but even cohesively, as it relates to the theming of Tiana's Bayou Adventure next door, this might be a change that needs to take place just to allow for some cohesiveness in the magic.
And that's what I was going to say. You have to pick and choose your battles. One way or the other, Splash Mountain is becoming Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I would rather them take out Frontierland and transform it into a New Orleans Square type of area than to just keep it Frontierland, and then you have this big sore spot of Tiana's Bayou Adventure right next to Big Thunder. And that was my big question from this whole, from the beginning of this concept of, I understood where it was coming from for Disneyland, but it wasn't cohesive enough for Walt Disney World. This actually answers a lot of the questions that I had, because it would not have made sense storytelling wise. So that way I prefer this. And New Orleans Square is one of I can't say one of my favorite lands in all of Disneyland Park.
Well,
sorry, go ahead, OG.
No, I'm sorry, George. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So to have a little taste of that, no pun intended, at Walt Disney World, I think it's a breath of fresh air. And plus, while Disney World's Frontierland is completely different than Disneyland's. Disneyland's has a more relevance to it because it now connects into Galaxy's Edge. It's a beautiful transition into both lands. Where with Magic Kingdom's Frontierland, it's basically a long stretch of a walkway with just facades on either side just to be able to get to Splash Mountain or Big Thunder. No one ever really utilizes that space. They just use it as a walkway to get to those attractions. I
had a similar feeling, George. Whenever I see videos of that walkway or videos of people walking there, it's an underutilized piece of real estate every single time I see it. And look, I think as Disneylanders, we're a little bit more sensitive to those things because nothing can be underutilized at Disneyland. It shows up like a sore thumb, let's say. But for this specifically, I mean, this really was kind of like, I think there could be investment in here and revitalize this area and really make it something of a showcase there. But Casual, I see it. Over there. I see you're kind of, I don't know. I don't think you're necessarily as enthusiastic about this idea.
No, actually, what surprised me was how much I was thinking that makes perfect sense.
Right.
which I think I posted on Twitter. I said, or in our group chat, I said, it makes perfect sense, which gives me pause to think, are they really going to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but my
here's the
thing
answer.
about it is,
Here's the answer to that real quick. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What's the answer?
No, I was just saying, here's the answer to that is that, but the D23, the what if section with all the Coco and Encanto stuff behind Big Thunder, all the pieces are coming together now, though. Like that, but it seemed random before. Now it doesn't. Now we know why that was planned for behind Big Thunder.
That's the thing, OG. As soon as Casual finishes this point, well, this stuff has been kind of percolating for quite some time, and our show specifically actually referenced it back around the time that information actually came to light. But before we get to that, Casual, go ahead and finish your point off there.
My thing was, why wasn't this announced as part of the whole, once they came out with, it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure, why didn't they say, and with this comes the reimagining of this portion of Frontierland? It makes me wonder, was it JPEG?
I definitely think it was capital expenditure for the park. I think that was their initial intentions to do that, but I think they only were granted so much money. So to be able to kind of cut off a big portion of what was considered a problem, they focused more on the attraction itself rather than the land.
Because
now
go ahead, Wizard.
I didn't say also, obviously CapEx, but also could it be that they didn't want to give too much of a bad news at the same time, so to speak, if someone didn't wasn't necessarily wanted. They're like, not only did we lose in Splash Mountain, but Frontierland too. What is this?
Or they knew that there were going to be the geeks like us that as soon as they say we're putting Tiana in here, why aren't you doing some New Orleans Square? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And gave us a couple of years of bitching and moaning, and they kind of knew what they were going to do in the long run.
I'll go ahead and play this here from our show, speaking about this initially, because I think it was kind of funny that, this is kind of revelatory to a lot of people, but if you're an avid watcher of this show, this has been in the works for quite some time, which I think speaks to your point, Casual. I think this stuff was percolating, but it wasn't at the point yet in which they could actually showcase it. And I think something has changed now, but we'll get into that as well. So here we go. I might play the clip, but Jim Hill and Len Testa actually went into this, and Jim Hill was talking about how it's like, how do you go from Tiana, which is Ray, Louis the Alligator, Dr. Facilier, all that, to Salt Mines, Tabasco Co-op. It's a long way to get from point A to point B, and I think they're looking to be so authentic. They're looking to be so driven by this idea that we reflect New Orleans and we reflect this kind of let's say a more diverse, progressive notion on the Tiana story and on Splash Mountain in general because of its past and so forth. And they're kind of impacted by all these different things, and it's like, we still have to get a really great attraction. And look, OG, I think you're right. I think you can have this story go anywhere. From what we not the clip I wanted to show. I thought I was at the right section, but I guess I wasn't here. I'll try to find it here because I think it's kind of interesting. If I can. Okay.
Magic this author.
Maybe I can't. I thought I had it. You had the performers there. No. Hey, look, listen. I thought I had it too. Vash, I thought I had it. Okay. So, all right. Don't have that, but I can tell you it's in there. You just have to look for it. Usually it's not my style, but we did talk about it. And if I could have found that, could have proved that, but just go back, listen to that show. It's real fun. This is our Beyond Big Thunder show that we actually had 6 months ago now, that talked about some of those ideas, and it actually lays it out pretty similarly in what you're actually seeing here, which tells me there were plans to do it back then, but maybe there were some kinks in the gears from actually getting this to the approval stage and announcement stage, right? I think something changed here, though, because we didn't just have one Beyond Big Thunder, New Orleans Square, Frontierland type video come out, which was from Braden. But almost at the exact same time, we had a Beyond Big Thunder video come out from DSNY Newscast. Right. And that was really unique because these seemed like, I mean, as we saw, maybe the interchange between them on Twitter, these were disparate, let's say, channels that, they weren't necessarily, I don't think they were necessarily looking to step on each other's toes. But they were, I think their sources that they have was putting this information out there for a reason, as if to say that this was getting to the approval stage very, very close to it. And now it's time to actually talk about it in this manner that has some substance to it.
Which I do think is very interesting between both DSNY and Mickey Views, because they are similar, but yet there are some differences. And I could even elaborate on that more once we move further into what this whole expansion is going to be. But there are some differences between the two of them that make me wonder which route Disney is going to go. So we'll continue on, and then I can get to that point.
Let's switch over to the Beyond the Big Thunder portion, because that's how I think, what happens with Big Thunder. If you do a New Orleans Square or New Orleans type section, as it buttresses up to Frontierland and Liberty Square, well, then what happens to Big Thunder? Because it's kind of there out in an island, right?
Now, this is the part that I find genius, that if Disney does, this was something genius that Disney had come up with, and I'm actually with Casual. The fact that it is genius, that they should do it, so hopefully they do.
Now, I believe I have that clip. I believe I have that clip of us talking about this, but I'll let them go ahead. And, actually, no. I'll play it right now. I have heard they envision a very similar concept, but with these three lands, the Villains Land, Coco, and Kanto, providing a connection point between Frontierland, as it currently exists, and either Liberty Square or Fantasyland proper. Let's see how that actually played out.
Square. Get ready for your mind to be blown here as everything starts to connect and everything starts to make sense. All this weird stuff that we've heard out of Disney over the past year. Now, you have, in theory, no Frontierland. You have a New Orleans themed street. At the end of the street, you have the beacon that you're attracted towards, and that is this hill that you have at the end, and it's Tiana's attraction. But then you have Big Thunder Mountain, and what do you do with that? It doesn't blend into everything else. It is one of the iconic anchors of Frontierland, and if you retheme the rest of the land to New Orleans Square, now it's all this New Orleans Bayou stuff, then what do you do with Big Thunder Mountain? Does it just sit back there? It's not in a land, or it just has its own land? Well, Imagineering has been thinking about this, I believe, for basically the last decade in terms of what to do beyond Big Thunder Mountain. Because behind the rivers of America, between the Haunted Mansion and Big Thunder Mountain, and off to the other side of Big Thunder even, there is a giant expansion area. In fact, there are multiple expansion pads in this area, and if they reshape the rivers of America a little bit, they can make the expansion pads even larger. The Magic Kingdom always needs more capacity, so there is a real operations as well as monetary pressure here on the executives to do something actionable back in this area that is prime for development and commit to something in the not so distant future. And that's, I think, why Josh D'Amaro, the park's chairman, felt the need to float some ideas for the area out to fans at the last D23 to gauge fan reactions. And he talked about Coco, Encanto, and Villains for this area back here. So are you guys ready for this? What I believe we are looking at here is if Disney commits the money, which they may not, let's say that they do commit the money to all these ideas I'm talking about, we'd be looking at a retheme of Frontierland to New Orleans Square, leaving Big Thunder, the lone desert themed attraction, above the New Orleans area. So behind Big Thunder, Disney puts a Coco attraction as well as an Encanto area. And now you have a new land, a southwestern type of land, where Big Thunder meshes into the aesthetics and theme of the additions that are located directly behind it, being based on the
real quick, Trey, if
geographies
you
of
could, just for a second. And this is a great idea, because you're already seeing this kind of at Disneyland, to be honest with you, with Frontierland. Frontierland, and more specifically like the Big Thunder area, where they're kind of incorporating a lot more of Latin culture in that space, right? With the Dia los Muertes stuff. So Disney's already kind of implementing this thing already in California. And it works very well. It works very well with Big Thunder. I could see them doing that with this, having it sort of like a Southwest / kind of Latin style area. And I think it worked very, very well. And the Big Thunder kind of blending in with Coco. I mean, it's kind of perfect, you guys. It's kind of perfect.
I think it is. And also too, not to toot our own horns here again, but 6 months ago we had this.
Yes, we did.
But let's say they do go forward with this kind of concept, right? Well, we know how Disney, works. They like to do things in pairs, right? They like to do things in twos.
Right.
We were just talking about Disneyland Forward and what actually could be, happening in that area beyond Disney California Adventure, beyond Disneyland Drive, right? Could we imagine a world in which these two lands, as they are built out for Magic Kingdom, get tacked on to Disney California Adventure?
Absolutely, because that fits the culture for California, and what better way to utilize that?
And you're building too.
You'd have to I think you'd have to, you'd have to make it work inside the California theme, but I don't think that's necessarily that hard to do, right? Could be the people that make California where what it is. Where do they come from? That kind
well,
of
then
thing,
you'd
right?
have to do the Villains Land. If we're going
Well,
with the California theme.
Well,
If we're going with a California theme, you got to have the villains.
I think the Villains Land might need to stay with Walt Disney World for a while.
But unfortunately, the Villains Land is going to be basically the state capital. So
state capital.
The Villains Land going to Disneyland, across the way on Disneyland's side.
Fantastic.
A bigger Villains Land.
That's interesting. Yeah, you could. I mean, whatever Walt Disney World ends up getting, folks, just keep in mind, Disneyland might be on the precipice of getting a lot more land.
Come back to this video again 6 months from now, and it'll be an.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, this works perfectly at DCA because. Okay, so if you do it in the expansion area, right, across by the Pixar Place Hotel, that whole expansion pad right there, it ties into Pixar Pier nearby because it's Pixar with Coco, and it ties into the California theme because it's Latin culture, and Latin culture is very California. So it's a perfect addition to DCA. Perfect addition. I just hope they bulldoze the Pixar Place Hotel because it's like even repainted, it's god awful and ugly. But we'll see.
If you go back to the maps, there's that little square where the Pixar Pier Hotel is on the zoning maps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you'll notice that on the one it's gray when everything else is marked with blue. Yeah, those ones. You'll notice that right there it's still cordoned off and shaded differently than the surrounding zoning.
That's unfortunate.
It's gonna be with us,
but it's got that shading is theme park overlay.
Oh, okay.
So that could be where your Galactic Star Cruiser style experience is placed.
Just because it's going to be for hotel use doesn't necessarily mean it's Pixar Place.
Right.
So it could become the Encanto Casita Hotel.
Yes. Let's go.
That would be nice. I like it. We'll continue on.
Mexico and the mountains of Colombia. So Big Thunder would become part of a new generally desert type of themed land, but then, and this is the distant possibility, do not count on any of this, but especially not the Villains Land. Just recently, Damaro was still teasing the Villains Land though, so who knows? Think about this. So now you have a New Orleans area, a southwestern desert themed area above it. How do you transition Big Thunder and Coco into the Haunted Mansion? Because an infrastructure idea that Imagineering has had for a long time now is to add a new method of travel where guests can actually walk beyond the Haunted Mansion all the way over to the Big Thunder area. This would alleviate crowds and bottlenecks you have in the Liberty Square area, as well as add more square footage to the park, more capacity to the park. This would be a huge expansion for the Magic Kingdom. So let's say they finally pull the trigger on this plan that they've had for a long time. What do you do to transition the southwest desert-looking area into the Haunted Mansion of all things? Also think about it going the other way. Guests from Fantasyland, they then go to the Haunted Mansion, and then beyond the Haunted Mansion, what goes back there? I'm sure you guys already figured out what I was referencing minutes ago. A Villains Land. You put a Villains Land back there. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my thesis, my rumors, my prediction, if you will, based on the most recent available intel from our inside sources of what may be happening to the Magic Kingdom over, well, how long will this take? Probably the next decade. I do believe that this is the current roadmap for Disney, at least on this side of the park. I think they have other plans elsewhere as well. Imagineering has ideas on top of ideas on top of ideas. Disney has a real need to add capacity to that park, especially going into the second half of this decade and beyond. All we're waiting on is for CEO Iger, Chairman Damaro, Walt Disney World's president, Magic Kingdom's VP, all these folks to put their money where their mouth is.
Oh, is that all?
Okay. So wait. So kind of going back to what I was saying about with DSNY and Mickey Views. Now, if you go and watch Jack's representation before all this came out, that yes, his was just that one pipeline where the Villains Land was in between Coco and Encanto, which he kind of more so based it off of the rendering that they gave to us at the expo. When you kind of format it, you kind of see the Villains Land in the distance in between both Coco and Encanto. However, of how Braden put it, I felt like that would be more adequate to
makes more sense.
Creating a full circle, especially it's genius to the fact that they could finally connect the Haunted Mansion to something, because that's just Liberty Square is a small little land as is, so you just have the Haunted Mansion basically running that entire land. And what a great transition that you would have this Gothic style type of mansion that would then connect to the villains.
Well, and this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I got to be honest, because like
it doesn't.
Why would you separate the two Latin lands and just shoehorn the villain in the middle? I mean, maybe this is the plan. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to make much sense.
Honestly, I thought of this configuration as well, but I wouldn't connect Encanto to Haunted Mansion. I would have connected it over back to Fantasyland.
Right.
So if you connect Fantasyland, you'd go into Encanto, which is more of that fantasy magical thing, and you shift around, with the whole Bruno thing, you kind of shift into the villains, and then villains transitions right into Coco with the Land of the Dead kind of thing. So that makes a little bit of sense, but I think I prefer Coco and Encanto and then villains attaching to Haunted Mansion. I like that layout better.
Even with the Fantasyland, I still feel like the villains fits there, because it's like
right. They could fit there as well.
Princesses.
Yeah, that's
all I know. All I know is if I was doing this, I would put a kick-ass castle in the Villains Land, and that would be a second prime fireworks spot.
Oh yeah, killer.
That'd be nice. Yeah. My issue with both plans is
are they too white for you?
Uh-oh, Dre.
Not when I'm taking a sip of my coffee, man. Come on.
Uh-oh. What is it? That's where we go when we go into that conversation. That's for sure. But okay. But here's my, not the race involved. No. Hey, my familia is included in there. So why would I be mad at that? No. Here's kind of my issue with both of these. I think, yeah, like could you have like a ingress and egress traffic actually occur beside a haunted mansion? Yes, I think you can actually do that. The problem is that area right now is like super tight. I mean, I believe the entrance to the haunted mansion as it currently exists is right alongside the river, if I'm not mistaken, right, George?
Yes, correct.
So to carve out more space to have a pathway, it'd be super narrow. My personal belief is that this would be stretched out to encompass not only like haunted mansion, which you could still have a pathway, but all the way to Fantasyland.
Right. That makes the most sense.
I think that's what makes the most sense, right?
Well, and the other thing too is I guess I could still see it because of the desert theme, but like I wonder if Tom Sawyer Island is still going to be considered. I mean, I know Braden touched upon that right now it is staying, but when you have an island just based off of Tom Sawyer and it's going to encirculate the desert, New Orleans, and villains, that to me kind of throws everything off. So I mean, I would, if they wanted to keep the island or what have you, but I would definitely and I'm probably the unpopular opinion, but I would definitely retheme it to something else.
I mean, what you could do, George, is for the areas that buttress up against Tom Sawyer's Island, and you can see right here in Braden's kind of layout here, you can see how Tom Sawyer's Island's kind of cut off there. So I think it would take a smaller footprint in a similar vein that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge kind of intruded on the space of Tom Sawyer's Island when that was installed. I think that's going to happen again. But you could make it so that, like, for example, if you got to the back of Tom Sawyer's Island and could see any of these locations, maybe you see the Encanto portion, for example, right? And the villains portion be kind of pushed over in a way that maybe you couldn't
blocked
see it
off
from Tom Sawyer's Island. Yeah.
That's
kind of why I'm saying, like, I think they're gonna want to like combine not just the other side of the river, but also Fantasyland as well, and just kind of add these three lands here in a way that really
I agree with you with that, because
Magic Kingdom,
because the villains can go all the way around, as you fellas had mentioned. It ties into both where it can be connected to the Haunted Mansion, but it could also be connected to the Fantasyland side. Obviously, you got the princesses and the other Disney characters tied with the villains.
This is also, I think, one of DSNY's points that he was trying to make here was that if you do push out let's say the adjacent road, the river, and so forth, and do it in this configuration, you see the kind of elements that you could include as part of this whole thing, like how much land you would gain from this. In this case, 17 acres. He has like Flight of Passage, Navi River Journey, the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, Docking Bay 7, Be Our Guest Restaurant, Remy's Ratatouille, Rise of Resistance, all of those things, Satuli Canteen, all those things like fit within this space. You could gain a lot of room just by, let's go back to that map view there, just by stretching this all out. And have the villains land kind of be adjacent to Fantasyland. So that's a way you could get around maybe DSNY's disagreement with Braden's model here. But suffice it to say, though, I mean, no matter what, regardless of who ends up right, who ends up wrong here, the fact that both of them are kind of saying this almost at the same time,
right?
The fact that this is kind of creating such a stir, obviously, within these channels right here, and we had sources ourselves that were suggesting something similar to this 6 months ago. I think this has been in the works for a while, and they're finally getting to a point in which they might be going forward with it.
Well, we've even seen evidence of it. We did a video on this a few months ago about like Imagineers walking through the Pecos Bill eatery and like measuring the drapes, basically. Like this is being worked on. It makes too much sense. There's too many people here in the same thing or in the same general vicinity We're seeing Imagineers at the restaurant, kind of scoping it out. I'd be shocked if this isn't on the table.
And one can argue, and a lot of people are saying, this is Disney's way of answering to Universal's Epic Universe, and it could be, but I think honestly, this is something that Disney has to do for itself, because it needs to expand its parks, especially with the Florida parks, because with so little within each one, and you have a lot more people coming to these parks, they need to expand to keep the guest flows moving. So I'm not saying that this isn't the answer to people's questions about Epic Universe, but I think one way or the other, I think Disney would just have a one-track mind that they're doing it for themselves.
To your point, George, I think Disney has wanted to do this for quite some time. It's one of the complications of the castle park layout, right? It just dead ends in certain areas, just does. And when you saw Star Wars Galaxy's Edge complete the circuit between Critter Country and let's say, what is it, Frontierland, Fantasyland, right? At Disneyland, that was, I think, revelatory for them in a similar manner that it was for Hong Kong when they kind of expanded their park layout, let's say. I think they for traffic reasons, operational reasons, all everything that goes into the construction of a theme park, layout of a theme park, I think they want to accomplish this. They want to do this, like you said, George. I think this is separate from Epic Universe. However, it might be seen as a response given the timeline.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was always one of my main gripes. For instance, if you're on Main Street or in Liberty Square and you want to happen to go to Splash Mountain or Big Thunder, well, now just Big Thunder because Splash isn't operating anymore, that you walk that whole path around to Big Thunder, and when you get to Big Thunder, you have to come all the way back. You can't circle anywhere around to loop yourself. You literally have to do an about face. And that is something that always griped me about Magic Kingdom.
Think about, too, for ingress and egress traffic, right? Think about the bottleneck that creates when you have to double back like that. Casual, I'm sure you've experienced that a few times when Critter Country and Fantasyland and Frontierland didn't actually connect, but we experience it right now when people have to double back out of Mickey's Toontown, for example, right? After going on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway or Roger Rabbit, they have to double back, and that creates a lot of issues and problems. I think they want to, as one of the most popular theme parks in the world, I think it's Magic Kingdom's number 2 right now, maybe number 1, when you look at the attendance between Tokyo Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. They want to best utilize and maximize on this space to allow for as many people as possible. How can you do that? You complete this loop.
100%. Now, before we move on to our next topic, which is some Reedy Creek updates, our good buddy...
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh.
Well, OG, I was thinking about it. We might need more than 30 minutes to actually talk about that. It's a little bit beefier, let's say. So I think we should tease the folks with Reedy Creek.
Got some clowns in the building. Clowns.
We got some DeSantis.
We do have some shenanigans going on, all things Reedy Creek. So I think we should save the bulk of that for another discussion. But just know that DeSantis did give a press conference today after Bob Iger commented about it again during his time interview, and after the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District is going to be passing their amendments. Trust me, there's a lot of things happening with the Reedy Creek Improvement District, now the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. It's starting to get real contentious here, but
the Villains Land, the e-ticket attraction is going to be the state penitentiary.
Yeah, it is.
The state penitentiary.
That was a really good look. He's winning people over with that one, I got to say.
But
moms are loving that.
But I just have to add just something back to our previous conversation. As much as I would love to discuss about Ron DeSantis, I already took one Pepsid today. But anyway, What I find quite interesting is how Bruce Vaughan is actually a major component to all of this. That it's not just Iger. It's like this is like coming from Bruce Vaughan, moving it over to Iger to get those dominoes falling into place.
What George is speaking about is under the previous structure as outlined by Braden, there would be levels of bureaucracy that would have to occur before a project of this scale and substance would have to be approved, right? So you'd have to get the sign off on the VP of that specific park, then the actual president of that specific resort, then Josh Giamaro himself, which is the head of the Parks and Resorts Division, and then our Parks Experiences and Products Division, but you get what I'm saying, folks. And then Bob Iger, right? And they would all have to approve. Apparently, what Braden is suggesting, and he has been suggesting this for a little bit now during his various live streams as well, is that Bruce Vaughan could become that direct point of contact between WDI and Bob Iger himself. And that could get around this kind of bureaucracy that has held up so many projects previously in the past. And I guess that was part of the Bob Chapek structure. But from what I understand, that's been going on for quite some time. So to George's point, he could be that direct link there.
Well, and here's the thing. Bruce Vaughan did not just retire quietly and do nothing while he was away from Imagineering. This guy has been highly successful running other companies when he was gone. So to bring him back into the fold, Disney had to promise him pretty much the world on a stick. Like he I'm sure he was promised, like, you know, hey, you have a lot of autonomy here, right? I mean, within limitation, of course, but he wasn't going to come back and play second fiddle to Barbara Boza. There was no chance of that, you know?
See, we had attributed Bruce Vaughan coming back to Josh Giamaro specifically because of the accountability thing, and he's going to need some people who actually done this before, what knows what WDI should look like in various stages of development and so forth, right? Structure and all that. But from Braden's perspective, he's suggesting that Bruce Vaughan was a personal friend of Iger, and one of the reasons why he might be a direct contact to Iger is because of that previous relationship. That's an interesting thing as well.
That's actually fantastic because now we have someone from Imagineering Creative with a direct line to Bob Iger, who Bob Iger respects immensely. That bodes very, very well to getting a lot of these projects approved because at the end of the day, it's Daddy Iger's decision. You know, if Daddy Iger says, Daddy Josh, you're making this, well, Daddy Josh is making it. This ride's happening. If Bob Iger wants it, he gets it. So I like that there's that close relationship between Vaughan and Iger. That's fantastic. Go ahead,
it's basically the template, like when you would have the vice president for Magic Kingdom, the president of Walt Disney World, Josh Giamaro for the Parks Division, and then Iger. You basically, and then how Braden was saying, like a X. It's basically a whole pipeline of constipation, and Bruce Vaughan is the enema. So it's like just flush it out.
Flush it out. Right. Well, and that whole line
there he has.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing with the graph, right? Like, it looks like a lot of approvals to get to the end, which it is, but that's what I'm talking about. If Bruce Vaughan is homies with Iger and Iger says yes, it doesn't matter what the chair and the president and the VP think. If Iger says yes, it's happening. So,
yeah,
at the end of the day, he bypasses all of that bullshit in the middle, basically.
Right.
He potentially, yes. If his assessment is correct, this absolutely can occur, and it would be good. The only thing that might, let's say, put a roadblock into this whole structure is capital expenditures, capital allocation. Right now, like Walt Disney Company is not looking to spend more money; they're looking to spend less. They're looking to spend $5.5 billion less, with less employees to do so. So we'll have to see whether or not they can, do the maneuvers that I think they can do to actually get something like this approved. Because, we were talking about it before, right? Like San Francisco, for example, right? It doesn't necessarily move the needle a lot. No, it's not necessarily a high budgeted project, which is good. But it's very little substance, right? Could we better utilize those resources if we omit a project like that or projects like that going forward and reserve them for big capital expenditures like what we see here with Beyond Big Thunder or even New Orleans Square 2.0 Magic Kingdom edition, stuff like that, right? And I think that's a smarter route to go. Retheme and do the things that really need it, and that way you can apply big budgets towards them.
Well, and Bob Iger talked about this in that Time interview recently,
Correct.
where he said with content, it's going to be quality over quantity, and we're going to maybe take the same amount of money, but we're just going to spend it differently, right?
Yeah.
So instead of having 10 little Francis Sokio projects that do nothing, basically, we'll only have maybe one or two big projects, but those big projects will be of quality and of substance. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out.
So how much of the 17 billion goes into this Magic Kingdom expansion?
Well,
All of it.
to do the New Orleans section, I don't imagine that taking up more than $75-100 million. I mean, it's that little block of buildings. If we are to presume that Braden is correct in his kind of thesis, which I think he is, right? So that's about a $50 million, $75 million project at most. And then beyond the Big Thunder thing, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was about $1 billion. 3 lands, this kind of quality, 1.5, 1.7. So very little in the grand scheme of things.
I think that they will break this off into phases. I feel like the phase 1 would be the New Orleans area, then it would be the desert phase 2, and phase 3 would be the villains. But I think actually, in my personal opinion, before even phase 1 happens with New Orleans, I feel like that Animal Kingdom is going to get some sort of change with Dino Land.
Yeah, Zootopia. Yeah, basically.
Zootopia or Moana.
I was going to say Moana.
That's the conversation.
But you know what's funny though is like I hear a lot of fans talk about Zootopia doesn't fit the park, but how does Moana though?
The connection with water, nature-ish, right? Is that cool? That kind of work for you? Yeah. These are hard fits in some cases.
I can see the Zootopia thing a little more, but that's interesting. I mean, Moana would make a brilliant land. I think it's a beautiful movie. You can do a lot with it. It just feels more Adventureland to me or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll just basically ask the question since Wizard's not going to do it. Is that not enough white for you, OG?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's too funny, you guys. Too funny. So we'll do the Reedy Creek thing another day. I know that the Reedy Creek stuff is complicated. It's not. Yeah, here we go. Our DeSantis drop one more time for Ethan. We'll do it another day. There's a lot going on with that. It's the Reedy Creek stuff though is kind of getting like a little bit well, not a little bit. It's getting pretty clown showy, to say the least. It's getting like, okay, right? But we'll definitely cover it in a future video and give it its proper justice. But we're going to close out this show. I'm going to start with Wizard this time around. I'll go around the panel. Wizard, if you can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media and more importantly, where they can buy your merch so you can rip them off.
You can find me on Theme Park Wizard on YouTube, Park Wizard 1 on the Twitterverse, theme_park_wizard on Instagram, and you can buy all my shit on themeparkwizard.shop. And don't forget, I'll always rip you off. Thank you.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I just have to say, you need to have a merch shirt with that saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to make one.
You got to do it. And of course, we got Mr. Theme Park Casual.
He's casual.
Fly casual.
Yes, he's casual. It was an honor and a pleasure again, sir, to have you on board. If you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, guys. You can find me on YouTube, Theme Park Casual, often live streaming at Disneyland, California Adventure, Knott's Berry Farm. And you can converse with me over on Twitter and Instagram at Theme Park Casual.
Perfect. Give him a subscribe. Give him a follow. We love Casual. And right up above Casual, we got Mr. Family Man 23, the host of our Citrus Corner show here on the channel, talking all Walt Disney World and the cruise lines. George, a freshly shaved George, by the way.
Yes.
Manscaped almost, right?
Basically. Even when Vash brought up that video of us 6 months ago, it felt kind of weird that I kind of saw myself like almost side by side, but I had the full beard that time. I was like to say, here you go, Manscaped. Here's the before, here's the after.
There you go. There you go.
Right there.
But in any case, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. Please check out the podcast I am part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on OG 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes. There we go. And last, but certainly not least, we got producer Dre Vash Sky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. The doctor. The doctor is in the hizzy. It's Dr. Drizzy right here.
Dr. Drizzy.
Dr. Drizzy. If you could let everybody home know where they could find you on social media, Dre.
I'll tell you, I would have settled for Dr. Drizzy the last couple of days. It was, a very tumultuous time period, but I'm so glad to be back on with you fellas. Thank you so much for actually coming on and dedicating the time that it takes to actually do these shows. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
But if anybody wants to go ahead and follow me, you can go do so right down there at Vash Sky. Just go ahead, type it in, and it should pop up for, as Christine My Sons McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion right there. And if you guys want to see me, well, it's going to be a channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where you can see my show Freshly Squeezed, your source for Jews, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
I do agree with you, Woo. For sure.
Adam the Woo. And so, Dre, what was your weekend? Does this drop basically sum it up?
That is one big pile of shit.
Yes, it does.
All right, we're keeping it.
Someone should send that memo to DeSantis.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, folks, man. We only have high-class stuff on this show.
That's right.
Yeah, we keep it really classy. But I want to thank everybody on the panel with a fantastic conversation all about Disneyland Forward and all the great news coming out of Walt Disney World. It looks like we're kind of getting back in business here. You know, the stain of the Chapek era is sort of wiping away, and we're starting to get some more positive stuff back into the parks again, which is good. And not to say it's perfect, by all means it's not perfect, but we're getting some good news finally again. Great to hear. Oh, hold on.
We have to close it out here, OG.
We got to close it out with, if the train is behind George, we're going to close it out with the track switch. Thank you all so much for watching.
Oh no, I must have hit that track switch.
And have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye now.